on the series by John Tepask and Herbert Klein. Yeah, they published the data from the cajas reales, which were basically the authorities that collected taxes, local taxes in early modern Mexico, and also in all the other areas of the Spanish Empire. And this I wanted to carry out some tests, right, statistical tests, in order to shed more light on what was the situation in these local economies. Yeah, because we don't know much about this period, because archives, all the material is in Seville, in the archive of the Indies, and during the revolution in Mexico, many archives burned down. So there is very little that we know. Yeah, so I had to select my basically my time period according to which are the answer to the question, which are the series that are the most complete ones. Yeah, so that I can draw conclusions. Yeah, using them. So I looked at the series by Tepask and Klein, and I was interested in the turn of the 16th into the 17th century, and I picked one frontier town, right, mining town, and one town whose economy was mostly agrarian, basically. So, and the criteria was that, and the two series that were the most complete ones were Guadalajara and Zacatecas. Okay. That's why this time period, first of all. So I'm going to start. My motivation was an article by Alfonso Garcia Ruiz, a Mexican historian, in 1954 was published, and it was on the Real Ensayo, which was basically a monetary reform that was carried out in 1602. Yeah, that was a total failure. But I would like to talk about this later. Yeah, because Garcia Ruiz in his article states that the two economies were basically the frontier economies were very unstable, much more unstable than local economies that were mostly agrarian, right? And that's the general belief regarding the economic history of early modern Mexico during this period. But this hypothesis has never been tested statistically. Yeah, and what I did was I tried to test it statistically. These two based on these two series. Yeah, so I carried out some tests of the difference of variance, and I took into consideration not the variance, of course, because the mining towns, of course, have a bigger variance than agrarian towns. Although in early modernity we have cycles, yeah, economies were subject to cycles, so it's not necessarily both economies were volatile. It's not that one was more than the other one, right? So I took the variance of the whole of the series during this period of both towns, and instead of this variance, in order to find some degree of homogeneity, I calculated the variation coefficient, yeah, which is basically the standard deviation divided by the mean, yeah, which gives a proportion, yeah, but basically the variation as a proportion of the mean. Yeah, okay. Now I can show you my series.
It's on PowerPoint. So.
Yes. Maybe if we open the computer and then. Yeah.
This is on the computer they have. Let's go to. Where is it? think it's just hidden right now.
So I was going to show you a map of Mexico. You know Mexico. I'll show you here. It's a very has a very odd shape. Look at it. Yeah, the famous border, 5,000 kilometers. Yeah, that's the widest part of Mexico. 5,000 kilometers. The whole surface is about 2 million square kilometers. The thinnest part is 1/10 of that, of the length of the border, the northern border. So if we look at the Yucatan, this thinnest part of Yucatan is 500 kilometers. Yeah, so it goes, the shape goes very odd, the shape. So we have the Sierra Madre Oriental, Sierra Madre Western, Eastern Sierras Madres. So of course the geography determined basically the economies of the whole of the surface of Mexico. The geography determined the way in which also people behaved in different communities. Yeah. So Garcia Ruiz divided these two communities into. Oh yeah, that's the next I have in my.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
Yeah, it's further down. Sorry.
Is it this one? The roll of copper and money?
No. It's further down. Sorry, guys. No, further up.
In the corner.
It's pages and pieces.
Mining market.
It's up one.
This one?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. And can I have the kingdom? Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Well, there we go. So much. So we were.
Should just slideshow.
Thank you. So, yeah, this is the map. And if you see, well, this is flat because the Earth is round. Yeah. So
Are you sure?
geography was a little challenging for Mexican children at school. If you think, oh, what's the southmost point in Mexico? You sort of think you're somewhere around Chiapas, but it's not. It's because Mexico has a belly, and that belly, if you want to go to the southmost part of Mexico, you have to go to Oaxaca, to a place called San Agustinillo, and take a boat that takes you to the southmost part. Yeah, so this is distorted. All the maps of Mexico are distorted. It's a funky country in every sense. But anyway, so we have two areas with two different populations. Nomadic tribes that were towards the north, so Sinaloa, Durango, Zacatecas, and Potosí, all this Nayarit, so were populated by nomadic tribes. You have the more central areas that were more agrarian, yes, and even the original populations were more used to trading. Yeah, they had their own means of exchange, etc. Arturo is not here, but he's written on the cocoa beans. Yeah, trade with the basis of cocoa beans. They had other feather quills filled with gold. Many different means of exchange, and there were people who were more used to trading, and they were sedentary. That was one big point, because in the north, tribes were nomadic. Yes. So there was a challenge for miners, because for Spaniards who wanted to spread the mines, because they had to lure the population, the nomadic population, to work in the mines, basically. Yes, and that represented a challenge, because there were people who were not used to means of exchange. Basically, they were hunter-gatherers. Yeah. And their appreciation of money was different from people who lived in more in communities, basically. Yeah. So so that we have these two different populations, right? So how did they work? Of course. So we have the two towns that I chose, Guadalajara and Zacatecas. Guadalajara, an agrarian town, Zacatecas, a frontier town, right? Frontier towns were founded just with the sole purpose of being close to the mines and basically we're exploiting the resources there. So, yeah, there were no natural markets around there, right? So, haciendas de labranza, provisioning farms had to be founded in the few fertile spots around around Zacatecas, because it was so arid and very true frontier. In Jalisco there were communities, etc., and of more sedentary inhabitants there. Yeah. So what happened in the frontier, because the number of suppliers was small, basically it was just all the farms that were founded around there were the sole purpose was to provide Zacatecas with goods, the goods that it needed, basically. And as a consequence, while we have a small number of suppliers, yeah, that pushed the prices up, yeah, of all the agricultural produce, and there were no markets as such, markets similar to the ones in the more densely populated areas. Yeah. So, given those two things, as a consequence, there was many cases scarcity, yeah, because there were droughts very often, and that pushed the prices up, and the prices were unstable. That is the general belief. But as I said before, that hasn't been tested statistically, and I prepared my two series, and I tested first of all the difference between the two variances, yeah, and in the taxes were the tax series that I gathered were the sales taxes, yeah, sales taxes that were like the kind of VAT tax. No, it was 5% on sales. Okay. Now those are used as proxies for overall economic activities. We often do that in economics. We take sales whenever we have missing data, we calculate them. We use them as proxies for overall economic activity. Although there were, in the early modernity, we know that the inaccuracies are very, very, very high. But that's the only thing we have, and that's why I'm happy. I have that. Okay. So this is just to show you. I brought this to show you where Zacatecas, and here is Zacatecas, yeah. And Guadalajara is number 5 here. Yeah, Zacatecas was founded in 1546. Yeah, when the mines were discovered, and then Guadalajara was founded a bit later. Yeah, and the location originally planned was near the Chapala Sea, which is quite a large. It looks small, but it's quite a large sea there. Lake, sorry. Yeah, around here. But then, because of the importance of Zacatecas, yeah, the location of Guadalajara was shifted northward, and that's why it was shifted. Originally it was going to be around here, yeah, and it was shifted northward. In order to be closer to Zacatecas. Yeah. And at the beginning, in 1551, around there, the Spanish population in Guadalajara tended to migrate to Zacatecas because there was more wealth in Zacatecas basically, but then Guadalajara became more consolidated and the population started growing there. It is very difficult I find it very difficult to talk about population in early modern Mexican towns because, well, we have to specify how many Spaniards and how many Indians there were, like the composition of the whole population, because we are purchasing power. But I mean, we cannot just calculate the GDP per capita because it doesn't make sense. That the Gini coefficient is so enormous that we couldn't do that. So it's this is just to show you how this. So I carried out I took the two series, and then I just wanted to test it statistically. This hypothesis of Jefferies that the frontier economy was more unstable than the agrarian one, and using the variation coefficient. And there is no. I mean, these were the different tests that were carried out, and as you see, out of 5, 3, according to 3, I couldn't reject the hypothesis of equality of variances. So I said, well, maybe. I mean, we can we take into consideration the variation coefficients. We cannot state that one town was more unstable than the other one. So what I did, I carried out further analysis of the variance using a method that's called the Gauge method, general autoregressive conditional heteroscedasticity, and the multivariate version that puts the data together in a matrix, and has the advantage of comparing the two series. So it's an autoregressive method, and similar to the basically ARIMA moving averages, and but it differentiates between the equation of the mean and the equation of the variance, basically. So these are just the series plotted. As I put them, it was I mean they were Tepasky and Klein did not produce them like this. Tepasky and Klein just transcribe the data from the archives, and as you may know, they come as they were recorded during the time of the economy. So I had to pick and choose the Yad Kabbalah, and so in many cases there were many entries, so I put them together, and this were the series that I worked on. Of course, the missing gaps, there are few gaps, and those had to be extrapolated, for the software to be able to work on this. So these were my conclusions. It's basically, this is the variance of conditional variance of Guadalajara, and this is the variance of Zacatecas. So yes, and that this is preliminary conclusions. I still have to do more work on them, but as we can see, the conditional variance of Guadalajara diminishes throughout time. Okay, whereas the conditional variance in Zacatecas persists throughout time. So whilst we cannot state that one variance is statistically significantly greater than the other one, we can state that their nature is different. They behave different throughout times. And in the case of Guadalajara, it persisted. In the case of Zacatecas, it persisted. The frontier economy, and in the case of Guadalajara, it diminished. This third diagram is the covariance. And normally, how we can interpret it, if it's positive, it means that there are volatility spillovers from one economy into the other one. If it's negative, there's no spillover. So it's throughout. It's it's mostly positive, but there are also negative negative results here. Yeah, and there is a sort of trend that goes apart from this peak here. It's sort of like sloping downwards, but I have to look more closely into this covariance. Yeah, but this for the time being, this is the conclusions the conclusions that I reached. It's that variances, the nature of the two variances is different. Now, why am I interested in that? Well, it's basically the thing. Another part, the most interesting part of this article is this stabilization. Basically, this monetary reform that was attempted, yeah, in the early modernity, and it was all due to a rate of discount that was charged for exchanging bullion against coins. Yeah, because in the frontier economies, money didn't flow naturally because there were provision farms that provided the mining regions with the food that they needed, etc. So it was sort of like an artificially created environment. So money didn't flow naturally. So it had to be brought by merchants. Yeah, and it had to be exchanged for bullion. Yeah, but in this process, the miners basically needed coins, basically needed specie, because they had to pay for miner salaries. Miner salaries were payable in specie, right? And that's why they contracted the service of these merchants who brought the money from the mint in Mexico City, 600 kilometers, yeah, to Zacatecas, all the way to Zacatecas. Okay, so there was an exchange rate mechanism. The merchants supplied the miners with the currency on credit. Yeah, it reminded me of a bit of Ivar's mint function of the mint. Then the miners repaid within a time frame of 40 to 50 days. Yeah, but the merchant received from the miners silver or bullion that was finer, so it had a higher degree of purity. Yeah, the legal price, because there was a legal price that wasn't not necessarily observed, but the legal price for the mark was 65 reals. Yeah, and the silver that the merchants received was purer than 65. Well, it was really worth more than 65 reals. It was worth 67 to 68 and 78 reals. Yeah. So plus 1. So there was this rate of discount that was 1 real per peso, was around 11%. Yeah. Plus the interest. Yeah. So that was what the merchants charged. Yeah. So all in all, it was about. I mean, if you take into consideration the transport and minting charges, we have that the profit of the merchant was about 50%. And I just came across a writing by Tomás de Mercado, and it turns out that the merchants charged the producers of cochinilla, the indigo, yeah, the same rate, 15%. Yeah, the merchants charged them 15% in exchange for currency. So I think that was may have been a rate for the whole of the areas that where silver or other valuable products were produced. But so the miners used the service of the merchants because it was more convenient than for them to go to the mines and mint the money themselves because well, it implied risk, etc. So, however, they were unhappy. The miners were unhappy, and they complained repeatedly to the vice-regal authorities about this rate of discount that they were forced to pay to merchants. Yeah. Now, there was scarcity of specie that was covered, at least partially, by bullion that circulated with the stamp of the assay, and that covered basically the scarcity partially. Yeah. So the miners were dissatisfied with the situation. They complained. They issued complaints. They were also petitioned mint for mint to be established in Zacatecas itself, but that was declined, of course. Yeah. And my theory is because, well, I will come to this point later. Yeah. So the Viceroy Gaspar de Zúñiga Acevedo from Fonseca, he was a Count of Monterrey. He was a very good viceroy, very much loved by the indigenous population. And but he put down the scarcity of specie on the small number of silver merchants that were there. Yeah, because silver flew out in order to pay out. Basically, silver specie flew out in order to pay for goods, basically for imports, yeah, and taxes also had to be paid in specie, so it was constantly flowing out. There was scarcity of specie constantly. And the explanation that the Viceroy offered is that, well, basically it's because of this shortage of silver merchants around. So these proposals to establish a mint were dismissed by the Treasury, yeah? And then what the Treasury suggested was the introduction of a regional currency, which the miners didn't want. So there was a huge dialogue of petitions and rejections of these petitions throughout this whole period of the turn of the century. Yeah. Now, in 1604, the Viceroy actually carried out basically sort of monetary reform, but not a monetary reform as such, but a reform of the way in which this transaction was happening. Yeah. So the royal assay was the functions were extended. Yeah. And the aim was to replace the merchants. You know, the royal assay with the extended functions would replace the function of the merchant, the silver merchant. So the provision of specie was going to take place through the royal assay instead of through the merchants. And the way that he attempted of doing it is basically the merchants, their function was abolished. Yeah, it was forbidden for them to carry out these transactions, and the specie was taken to the assay, and the assay was going to distribute these coins, yeah, and it was going to exchange them for basically 65 reales of bullion. Were going to cost 65 reales of specie. So what is happening there? Yes, it's basically a devaluation of the real. Yeah. Why? Because basically it's inflating the price of bullion. He was inflating the price of bullion, and that had a consequence on the price of the real. The relative price of the real in respect to all the other commodities. Yeah. So what happened? I mean, they knew beforehand. They foresaw this basically this increase in all the prices by this. But despite that, they agreed and they were happy to have this. And it was basically. So the nominal value of bullion increased, the nominal value of silver reals remained unchanged, and that was the depreciation of those reals. Then, as the prices increased, the purchasing power of the reals decreased. Yeah, things were more expensive, so there was the need of more money to carry out transactions. So the problem of currency, of scarcity of specie was exacerbated. Yeah, the demand for specie increased. Yeah. And then we have the absence of credit also, because since the function of the merchant was abolished, there was no credit. Yeah, so that exacerbated the whole situation. Yeah. So the plan included also to stop the circulation of bullion as a mean of exchange, but that wasn't possible. Yeah, there had to be bullion in order to carry out the transactions, because there was the scarcity of specie was increased. And in addition to that, I mean, the Chichimeca Indians, I know Chichimeca is a pejorative, the way that the Aztecs called the northern tribes. It means barbarian in Nahuatl. Yeah, but Chichimecas were Huicholes and Yaquis and all but I refer to them as Chichimecas because otherwise I would have to go through a list of names. So the Chichimecas, the northern Indians, basically, were unhappy about the Spanish presence in that region, right? So they regarded the Spaniards as invaders still, yeah. And there was basically, it was an easy target to target the carts that were carrying, yeah, the bullion to the mint, because they knew what basically this money is no longer the merchant's money, it's the viceroy's money. So as a retaliation against the authority, they targeted the conductas that were the carts carrying this bullion. So eventually the scheme was abandoned. Yeah, it was completely futile, and it was eventually abandoned. We don't know when, but by 1625 it had been the role of the merchants had already still been stated. They were informally operating, yeah, but in 1625 was around that time it happened. We don't know exactly when. Yeah, and basically the number of merchants increased over time. Yeah, and that made this credit market more competitive. Eventually, the rate of discount diminished over time, and that's the end of this story. So what I'm interested in, basically, is to establish a top and bottom level of this volatility, yeah, of the two economies, yeah, and to work out whether there's a link in which I could establish between the rate of discount and these two top and bottom levels of volatility. So that are, I suppose, also in line with the minting point and melting point of the reals. Yeah, and then now I'm going to ask you, because I'm very interested in knowing if there was a similar situation in the areas that you are studying, because in areas where silver or precious metals were produced, there was a need to differentiate between bullion and specie, in order to keep also the price level in check. Yeah, and if we have a very unstable price level in frontier economies, that gap should be wider. yeah, to allow for prices to go up and down, yeah, without affecting the value of the real. Because the real was not only the currency, it was also the export commodity, yeah, and there were transactions that had to be carried out in reales, yeah. So the stability of the coin as such, as international mean of exchange, had to be safeguarded. Yeah. So there had to be a strategy in order to a buffer zone, to say so, that would protect the value of the currency from fluctuations. From fluctuations that were typical of frontier economies. So that's what I'm planning to do in the future, and I would be grateful for any feedback you could give me about this. Thank you very much. Yes.
When the Viceroy's program came in and they eliminated the extension of credit, I see that in his proposal, but who handled transportation costs to the Mint? The Mint was never taken to Zacatecas.
No.
You still had to take coin up, but you also had to
Yes.
take coin. Who picked up that?
The vice-regal authorities.
The government
Yeah, the
absorbed
government.
that cost?
Yeah. It was a bit mad to do. I don't know. It was ill-conceived, and maybe it was just a political maneuver to keep the miners content, because they were complaining emphatically. Yeah, but I find it very, very interesting episode, and it hasn't been looked into. I mean, it's one tiny article from the 1950s that sort of tells the story, yeah, and the archive. I mean, the original documents that basically. This story is based on, of course, in Seville, yeah, but Garcia Ruiz based his article on secondary sources, yeah. So yeah, it's interesting to look into this, and then so yes.
Can we go to the graphs?
Yeah.
Just I can't follow the math, but
This.
okay. That's the year at bottom, so that would be 1600,
Yeah,
1610,
yeah,
2030, 1640.
Yeah.
And what you were saying is that the peaks that suddenly appear after 1640 means that a sudden volatility has appeared?
Which one are you?
The variance for Zacatecas.
Zacatecas.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's been relatively flat and suddenly it springs into life again after 1640.
No, but it's not. It's a conditional variance.
Okay, the maths escape me, but
Yeah.
I want to bite into something. I mean,
Yeah. The thing-
that means what?
That means, I mean, normally when you do this multivariate gauge analysis, if the line becomes flat, yeah, and downward sloping, that means that volatility is declining.
Okay.
Yeah. If it persists, then you still see peaks. Yeah. Of course, some are higher than others, but the message is volatility persists.
But the fact it was nearly flat before 1640, does it mean anything or not?
Nearly flat?
Well, it's
No, it's not nearly flat. No. You mean that if it means that it is
that
increasing?
suddenly has increased or not?
Well, not really, because if you see the trend goes back to where it starts.
What are the units on the graph? What do the units represent?
That reales.
Because in 1640, that's when basically the Spanish crown changes its policy on the supply of mercury.
Okay.
And that's when the debt is no longer swept under the rug. And the Spanish crown is telling the miners, pay up. Okay, I'm not
Yeah.
going to forget about the money you owe me, either you pay me or you don't get mercury.
So you reckon that's why?
So that's why I was asking if the year has any significance, because after 1640, their life became a bit more interesting. Okay.
The mines.
Yes.
Yeah.
For them, it became a problem where to source the mercury. They had to have ready money in hand before things were a bit more lax. So 1640, I don't remember exactly the date, but around that, things changed dramatically for the miners.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. I think it's more revealing to look at the original. Yeah. Yes, I mean, and then this is a real volatility without this detrending.
And it's from that year for the next 100 years roughly that they begin to use smelting more and more as mercury becomes either more expensive or more difficult to find. And
Yeah.
that's when you find both curves, and you'll see it tomorrow.
Yeah.
So 1640 has a significance. That's why I was asking about
No,
the year.
that's very interesting. Yeah.
The other question I have towards the end,
Yeah.
what commodities are you referring to?
What commodity?
I think it's the last slide.
Oh, sorry.
No.
Commodity
more.
prices. Yeah. But the
Which ones? What are we talking?
well, corn and vegetables, whatever was produced and offered in the market. Yeah.
And this is
Over
totally
the basket.
influenced. Why do people expect more volatility in a frontier town?
Well, yes.
I would expect higher prices probably because there's
Yeah.
more silver circulating, but why more volatility?
Because they had, I mean, the provision was difficult, yeah, because it was
Okay,
far
so the
away
price is higher.
and it was very, very dry. So sometimes there were droughts and the whole of the area was there was scarcity. Often there was a scarcity of produce. Yeah, so the prices went up and down, and also as a consequence of increase and decrease of the production of silver. Silver production is volatile by nature, isn't it? Yeah, the way that it was carried out then. I mean, they just dug and hoped to hit the vein, and if they hit the vein and found the ore, then there was abundance. But that didn't always happen. Yeah, so that the prices reacted to that too. Yeah. Or am I wrong?
I have no idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Go ahead.
You're based in London. Have you looked at like the gold points?
Gold
And
points.
The London gold market and the way that
Okay.
Bank of England operated the gold standard? Because that's what you're talking about at the end. So you need to look at the gold devices and need to
Yeah.
work out what they are.
You know the gold through.
And maybe you can add, instead of like, giving us a question to finish with, you've got all that amount of data that you can work with, all the statistics are there.
You think so?
You're in London as well.
Yeah.
Hasn't anyone in London talked to you about that? No. What they're talking about is in about 100 years ago, it was called gold points.
Yeah. 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 I
Now, that's
know.
an argument as well.
Throughout the 17th century, the ducado appreciated against the real. That is well known. Because, well, yes.
That's not what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
If you go right towards the end,
Yeah.
the kind of question you're posing, you really, if you have a
Which
look,
one?
did the difference between the prices of goods act as a buffer zone within the, why not look at like something like the data set to the London Gold Exchange. And look at the
For the
Bank of
turn of
records.
the 16th into the 17th
Not
century.
for the 16th century, because there wasn't a central bank in London until the end of the
Well, that's the thing. Yeah. But this
But
is
I mean,
quite early.
If you're asking that as the kind of question, why don't you,
You
use, like get some solid data, do the calculations, and then maybe, you've got something to work with and compare.
Yeah.
Just in a different
Different topic and geographic area. Yeah. Yeah, what I was hoping is maybe find some collaboration, people who are working, maybe you, I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I mean. You know, like
Ask this
yeah.
question with your data or something like that, or just give me that information, because I would be happy to find out. I mean, I would be happy to know how people, for instance, in the Feldberg, how did they manage to differentiate between bullion and specie? Because there has to be a difference. Yeah. In places where silver is produced, if you don't make this differentiation, well, the value of your species will be affected. There has to be a difference between the minting point and melting point of species. Yeah.
Yeah. Is that a universal thing, or will it always be different?
Well, according to Thomas Sargent, well, he has a model about that in his book on the big problem of small change. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he came up with this model. But I mean, it's common sense also. If what happened in this case when melting point and minting point were one. Yes, that was inflationary, because this gap between minting point and melting point disappeared. Yeah, and that had, of course, an effect on the price level. Yeah, because it's the equivalent of basically crying your currency up or increasing the nominal value of your currency. It's a devaluation, basically depreciation of the currency. But I'm wondering. I mean, here there was with the miners where something happened, and that made me aware. Well, that's why there's awareness about that. But how did people in other mining areas manage this situation? How did they?
I think it was all over New Spain. No one knows how much was managed as bullion.
Yeah.
And we only have the official register for the coinage, because that is what was exported, because as far as I know, they did not allow export of bullion.
Yeah.
So that's the only record we have. How many pesos were actually minted in Mexico City? The informal economy with a bullion, I think no one knows, not even the size of it.
No, but my point is the differentiation between melting point and. I think in Peru and in Mexico, part of the strategy was to have only one mine, only one mint in Mexico City, and that's why, I mean, it was reales were a differentiated commodity, because they were produced far away. They were useful to carry out transactions. They were more used to bullion, and that gave value to specie, basically. But that was refusing to establish a mint in Zacatecas was part of this differentiation strategy, and that remained like that until the Bourbon era. Yeah, there was only one mint in the whole of the viceroyalty. Yeah, and that was part of this differentiation in order to create the difference between bullion and specie. But my question is, how did people in the Feldberg or in other mining areas handle this situation?
Did they have refineries? I mean, how was it refined?
Yes, it was. Well, yeah.
And there were no restrictions on the refineries.
No. Well, there was the azogue, the mercury was distributed by the authorities through the alcaldes mayores. Yeah. So that was again mercury was key there, because it was that was the supply was regulated, but it was scarce at that time, because there was only these 3 mines in the world who that produced mercury, right? Idria, Huevancalica, and Almaden. And the whole mercury had to come from there. It was genuinely scarce, I think. Well, the Fuggers were doing some business there, but yes, it was scarce then. Yes, sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, because like in South Africa, the bullion refined gold was very different than the sort of gold produced at the mines and refined at the mines themselves. And England, the Bank of England, didn't allow South Africa to set up its own refinery until after World War II, I think.
After the First World War.
Was the First World War, in between and the interwar period, right? I mean, and that was part of their whole market control mechanism, was to do that. And that's why I was wondering if they were.
Thank you. I have one answer then. Yeah, excellent.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, but that's a way. But there has to be a certain regulation.
Right.
Yeah, in order to make the gap between these two values possible. Otherwise, the whole monetary system collapses.
Tom, I think in New Spain what they did, anyone could be a refiner. You refined your silver, you took it to the local mint. They would check the quality, okay, and they would pay you according to what they assayed on that silver.
Yeah.
They purified it, put a stamp,
Yeah.
took out the 20% for the crown, and gave it back to you with a stamp on. And then you could go and mint your own coins. Or what, I mean, you'd
Yeah.
already paid tax on that, so you did want the coins on that.
Right.
The contraband side, you didn't have the stamp, but you
Yeah.
could use it as bullion and that in informal economy. So I think it was a big mess.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. But it was not the mint. The mint was in Mexico City. That was the
Caja-
assay.
The Caja put the Caja put the stamp on the bar.
Assay.
But
It had to
everyone
be
could
assay.
refine. You could refine.
But that it could circulate only locally. Yeah, they issued different stamps, and they could. I mean, that was de facto a local currency bullion. Yeah, because it had the stamp of the assay, and it could circulate. It could be used to buy commodities.
Can't we compare that with the private money that was stroking in the Californian mints? They had these private issues in the Californian mints, so perhaps we can compare it with this.
Yeah, where's yes.
Actually, there is a little-known museum of that private mintage. It's at the Bank of California that I showed at Sansom and California Street, downstairs in the basement. Not many people know about it, so if you have a little bit of time here, it's good to walk over there. Beautiful banking hall. And it's largely about the Comstock, because the fortunes of that bank were so connected with the Comstock. Also, in case nobody's told you, the mint that building across the street was the mint that was built in San Francisco, largely in response to the big bonanza in 1874, I think it was. And we still don't know what to do with it. The California Historical Society is going to try to get it as a museum, because San Francisco shamefully does not have a city museum at this point. I'm sorry.
No, it's well, thank you very much. Any more questions? No. So if you find out how your regions manage this problem, I would be very, very interested in. Sorry, Michael.
I think when it comes to other regions, at least non-frontier regions, this is done by the market itself. Speaking of Northern Europe, at least you have the stock exchange or exchanges. They fix the price, and it's the competition is so hard that you have only transportation cost more or less, and then the minting cost as the difference between these two things. And in many of these sort of state-run mines, the government or the prince or king or whatever has already a fixed price on the bullion when it comes out of the mine, and then he can do what it. Sometimes it's best to make it into spitting coins or to put it on the market.
Yeah.
And you will see it quite easily in the first Deming meeting in Paris. There was this guy. I'm not sure I don't remember his name. He was one of Marc Van Door's PhD students. He had gathered a lot of material, like these, not gold points, but the silver points before the gold standard. You can see it's very easy. You only have these 2% margins typical between them.
Stefano?
Yes, Stefano. Yes. So you can follow it, and I think if you go back in time, if it's like 17th century Northern Europe, it's not 2%, it's perhaps 5%. And well, speaking about Norway and Denmark, which I know about, and then the market in Hamburg, it's very easy to see that the difference is only 2%.
Yeah.
And it's exactly what is estimated that it takes a cost to sail a ship from Copenhagen or Norway to Hamburg.
Yeah.
That's the 2%. So it's the competition within these areas is so extremely hard that you cannot.
Yeah.
I think it's the frontier or non-monetarized areas are so completely different from what happens in many of the places where we look into it.
The market sorts out the differences. Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
And I think there's a guy over there who has written a lot about this.
Yeah.